This evening, we will cover the items listed here, starting with a brief overview of the City Council work plan, moving through the budget development process, a summary of revenues, including trends and expenditures proposed by department. I am joined by my colleagues this evening, and I will be handing the presentation over to our Environmental Services Director, Yolanda Bundy, for a detailed overview for the department, and she will hand it over to the Planning Director, Richard Mollica, for the same regarding the Planning Department.
And the current reorganization that we're showing for you to better meet the ASD goals and the influx of all the work, I'm giving you what we currently have, right? So I have 17 staff members, and you have authorized an addition of 3. So I have a total of 20, which not all of them are on board. But the way that the division, the department was divided is your building and safety, which is all your inspections, your plan check, and your permits, and then your environmental programs, and then your environmental wastewater, and then administration separate, because also they are the staff that is basically helping us do everything that we need to do in order to get to the demands that we need to do day in, day out. I am proposing to restructure the department and facilitate a more fluid and efficient workflow for 2022-2023 budget. I'm proposing this reorganization, which is built upon the council's recent approved mid-year supplement expansions. This reorganization will require no additional full-time employees. Next slide. What I'm proposing to do is have a main building and safety and permit counter as one, and then the environmental and administration in another item. Recognizing the many requests and also how I'm listening to the public and to when they go to council, but also when they write to us, that we need to make an effort to streamline and to help facilitate all of those work that are coming in, right? But in order, instead of everybody coming to Yolanda and Yolanda doing this and that, why don't we have a better way to do things? By this, I mean, with the multiple requests and inspections that we're conducting, it's critical that we have a supervising building inspector that can help me and can assist me on responding to those inspections. And again, keeping the quality control and make sure that we are there and answering questions for the contractor right away. So I am proposing to promote my senior inspector to a supervisory inspector, have him underneath the senior inspector and 2 more building inspectors. I'm also proposing, due to the many requests that we do for status of plans, the city's taking too long on returning, even where the plans are, the internal coordination is to best facilitate that is to have a principal permit technician that will be responsible to coordinate the workflow, the workload for the plans that are coming in and brought in and in the interior for throughout the departments, but also help out with facilitating direct communication with the public. I think a lot of what I see and what I have observed is that the public is demanding more of us. The public just wants to make sure that we are communicating, that we are letting them know, it is under the process, but we need to come back and say, it's going to take us 2 days, it's going to take us 3 days. Having that information go directly from the principal permit technician that is seeing the plans coming in and out, instead of waiting for me to get to the middle of the night or a Saturday to respond, this will be facilitating that. My deputy building official position, unfortunately, didn't work out because the position, it was more like a management, and I don't need more layers of management. I really don't. I need hands-on that can help me do the work and the operations. So instead of having another manager that will sit on their office and come out whenever is needed, I need another person out there. So I am proposing to transform the deputy building official into a civil engineer, plan check engineer that can help me with the higher, more complex levels of plan check, and also can help the other associate civil engineer with the number of plan checks requests that are coming in. Under the administrative environmental portion, I still have an environmental health administrator that will help me oversee the environmental health regulations, and also all the reviews that we have for on-site wastewater treatment systems. And in addition, what I'm proposing to do is my senior analyst will have her more over the environmental programs manager. Sometimes there is a lot of deadlines and regulations that are coming up, and she has been able to help me meet with my environmental group and keep us on target so we are on time. I mean, there's a lot of deadlines that we need to continue moving forward. And this person might be, is going to be able to oversee the environmental programs, and again, continue overseeing the administration portion of it. Next slide. Sorry. By doing this, we'll be creating a specialized team that will thoroughly understand who and what is needed to keep every project moving forward. Every inspection, every permit, every plan check, and every report and compliance, so we stay on target. Next slide. So in terms of the workflow, the reorganization will provide us a more field oversight, a quicker turnaround time, improve quality control and customer service. I'm still gonna be very involved and very hands-on, because that's who I am, and there's not the intent for me to change that. I'm not gonna be there, but just providing us a better way of doing turnaround time, do it in a more fluid workflow that the community feels that we are doing our job, and being a cohesive and more clear in communication. Communication has been one of the things that through COVID, we have struggled to get everything right, from electronic submittals instead of hard copies. This will help us out. This will also boost the employee morale and keep on the growth and the mentoring of the staffing that we have, having a more functioning department. I remind the council, since I started, I haven't had really any turnover on my staffing. Everybody is really committed, except that today I got not such a great news. Christine Shen, our shining star on environmental programs, is going to be leaving the city, so that I'm heartbroken, just because she's so integral to everything that we have done on the environmental portion. But I'm recommending to reorganize the department. Again, converting the deputy into a senior civil engineer, retitling the senior building inspector to supervisor, creating the principal permit technician, which will be an internal recruitment, giving the opportunity to one of our senior technicians that have served your community for 15 years. They have been here like your soldiers through the fire, through COVID. Those are your always there, always present, always trying to help and do more. And also creating the programs management for the environmental programs.
What you have before you here is a slide showing where we'd like to go with the department. What I'd like to do is break up the department basically into 3 formal divisions. You would have a planning division, development services would be our new admin team, a new name for that, and then a code enforcement manager. There would be a supervisor for each of the 3 divisions. And what this would do is this would change our current reporting structure of 20 employees reporting to 2 managers and then myself. So we would have a bit more leadership, and this would allow for a bit more specialization and focus and responsiveness. The planning group, I'd like to see have 3 separate tracks that are distinct. We'd have an advanced planning track. So this would be a group of folks that are focused on essentially council policy, council work plan goals. This would be code updates, any changes to our general plan that need to be made for regulation purposes, ADU ordinance updates, items like that. These are currently being handled by consultants, but we do need some in-house help. Consultants are not enough. And one of the biggest problems in our department has been that we will have a planner that's working on a council priority, but then there is, something happens with the project, whether it be we need to get that project to a hearing because of deadlines, Permit Streamlining Act issues, or perhaps there is a construction concern in the field and we need a planner to get on that right away. That planner gets pulled from the advanced planning because that's kind of the quiet voice in the room to go jump onto that current project. And then what happens is we fall behind on work plan items and then also any required code updates. This is why, for example, it's taken us a while and now we've retained a consultant to address the local coastal program amendment for wireless. It's because of workload issues. Then we would have a bit more of an experienced team that would work on the more complex current planning projects. These are commercial development, capital improvement projects, larger residential development, subdivision type projects. The idea here would be to attract and retain a group of skilled individuals that enjoy those types of complex projects and have them be able to focus on that and feel that they have the time to put together a good report and a good review so that it can be presented to our decision-making bodies. So that would be that track. The other track we would have would be the short turnaround type projects. These are the projects that generate, I would say, probably the most amount of phone calls from residents. These are, where is my solar permit? Where is my fence permit? I'm trying to do something small. I'm trying to get my swimming pool by summer. These are minor projects, and these are often a little bit more a simpler project. We can utilize planners that don't have quite the same skill set that the current or advanced planning tracks would have. But this would be an area to grow and develop planners, and also to have just a group of folks, and this would also be part of it would in the interplay with the counter, but this would be the group of planners that specialize on just those quicker, fast turnaround projects. They could focus on that, and also ideally we'd be doing this would help with our customer service. And then as before, we would have under the new position that we look to create, the development services manager. That person would then be a liaison kind of between the counter and the public to help with those requests. And they would also oversee our administrative staff that supports the department and the public. And code enforcement, the only change there would be we'd like to reclassify a position to be able to have a senior enforcement officer. Our goal here would be to attract somebody who is looking for they're looking for that title. There are not many cities out there that have titles like that, but we'd like to attract somebody who's got experience as a code enforcement officer, someone who's looking to fulfill kind of a leadership role and be more of a head officer. Ideally, this will help us retain our code enforcement staff. We lost 2 really good officers this year, and they both left for essentially lead type positions. And they also were just uncertain of where we were going to go because we didn't have such a position. And so, we're hoping that helps us retain some better folks and then also be more responsive. If I may have the next slide, please. This slide just reiterates more of those 3 tracks that I was discussing on the prior slide about the specializations within the planning department. And this just makes it a bit more visual so that you could see the types of services that each of those groups would be providing to the public and the city. If I may have my next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned, in our administrative specializations, we would be looking at putting a new person in charge, somebody that can focus on this. And the importance here is to achieve the goals of the department, which are to function better. I don't think anyone will tell you that the submittal process has been good in the last 15 years. Planning commissioners have pointed out that, prior to the LCP, our submittal process just wasn't working. And so our goal here is, one, we would like to formalize an electronic submittal process that offers us two things. One, it already makes the project digital. It already would put it into tracking software, which would help, once again, with if someone asks, where is my project, we can make that a bit more public. And also, it's a convenience matter for members of the public to submit anything to the city, whether it be a request for a primary view determination that they'd like to have, or if it's a request for a new fence or a new house. The idea would be to kind of join in with other cities are doing, and that's to have a portal for folks to make an electronic submittal to the department. And once again, we want to make sure that this development services manager would be in charge of making certain there are online statistics and reports. Once again, to make it just a bit more known what it is the planning department does. This includes changes to our development database, continuing with public outreach. Prior to the Woolsey fire, we were conducting interviews with pretty much anybody. When I say that, I mean we were meeting with residents, we were meeting with critics of the department, we were meeting with expediters. We were willing to seek feedback from anybody who's willing to meet with our senior administrative analyst. We felt that it would be best if they did not meet with a planner, if they didn't meet with code enforcement, a more neutral employee in the department, so that they could air their grievances, tell us what things worked, tell us what things didn't work. We started that prior to Woolsey. It was derailed by the fire. We obviously had other priorities we had to shift towards. That is something we want to get back to doing, looking at what it is we could do to make this department run a little bit better. And then this person would also continue to oversee the department's role within our fire rebuild program. That is a priority for the department. Right now, we have a consultant. We were able to retain a consultant that we were able to train to work on a little bit more complex projects, but we essentially have two full-time planners dedicated to the Woolsey fire rebuild. At one point, I had upwards of 4, but I lost those 2 planners to other cities. They were city staff. They were very knowledgeable. We found that they were able to review projects faster and more completely than our consultants were, just because of their training and institutional knowledge. But this is something we need to stay on. And in terms of our department, the number of Woolsey applications, it's starting to decrease, because we have managed to approve and get a large number of them into the building plan check process. However, as these projects go through the plan check process, there are minor changes that come back to our department. This person could help flag those changes, get them in front of a planner, help with a quicker turnaround on those changes so that we don't hold up the plan review process, and then also use this person to coordinate the final inspections and also look at ways to do condition compliance to make certain that these fire rebuilds are complying with the sets of conditions that were tacked on to the approvals. If I may have the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, these are some of the goals and how we're going to get there. So how we're going to get there is looking at a 3-year plan to make some changes to the structure of the department. This includes what you have in front of you. The start, we're looking to increase the number of higher level planners. We'd like to obtain another associate planner, another assistant planner, and also we'd like to obtain 2 part-time interns. to work in the department. We're looking at, as I mentioned, creating teams that can specialize for the purposes of efficiency and focus. And ideally, we'll be able to implement the following goals. Some of the goals we're looking at are customer service. How are we going to do that? We want to look at electronics. How can we, technology, how can we get better submittals into the department? How can we track projects? We don't want things falling through the cracks. We would like to make it so that it's easy for applicants or interested parties to look and see where a project is in the pipeline, so that if somebody is interested in what's going on next door to them, they're able to find out. They don't have to feel surprised when a notice comes in the mail for a public hearing. We'd like to be able to do that. We'd like to also change, once again, as I mentioned, there's problems with the application process. We need time to focus on flow charts and handouts, better materials that will help folks. Through the maintenance of planning metrics and online data, online project tracking, perhaps even open training sessions that are, so folks know what to expect in the planning process, some outreach, all of that goes towards the goal of transparency. I do believe that the department, we do a lot. And I believe that there is a feeling out there that things go into a box and they come out of that box. And I don't believe that folks are actually seeing what goes on in that box. I don't think people understand the number of incomplete letters that get issued by the department. I also don't think that it's as obvious as it might be, the amount of project corrections where we explain to someone, no, you can't do that. We will recommend denial. The goal is to make that a little bit more known, not to make it kind of a box that things go into and folks don't see. We also need to work on institutional knowledge. We had our first loss of the institutional knowledge in around 2014, 2016. There was a loss of staff there. A lot of our longtime, more senior staff left. We built up some new staff, and then over this past year, we've had a major loss of that. The majority of the staff that we have right now has less than 6 months experience. So we're working to include training, get those folks up to speed, but we want to make sure that there's a career path for them and really encourage people to stay with the city. And once again, when we talk about staffing numbers, I think it's important to understand that the city planning department has not restructured itself in many years. And we are operating under the same structure that we were prior to the implementation of the local coastal program. If anything, the expectations on each planner has only increased over the last 15 years. I know right now we are at a low staffing point, but even at our best staffing point, we were never able to achieve that optimum number of cases to planner. We were always, even at our best time, I would say under two planning directors ago, we were probably in the high 40s. It's just the caseload has always been high, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that a serious look was not taken between 2004 and 2005 when the LCP was implemented. And then another area where we as a department wish to have a goal set to increase our success with is code and compliance. There are a lot of conditions being placed on conditional use permits. Coastal development permits, for example, have requirements for view corridors. I think it's no surprise that over time, the view corridors tend to disappear, and every so often we do a sweep and send out notice letters to homeowners to clear out and put back the view corridor. But once again, that takes time, that takes staffing, and it's something that right now we're just having a hard time doing, because how do you track those? That has to do with technology to flag those kinds of things, and also staff to look for those conditions and focus on post-decision compliance. And also as part of this too, I do believe that we need to have some updates to our zoning code and interpretations manuals, just to be certain that we are, and when I say we, being the council, the planning commission, and the staff and the department, are all operating under the same set of expectations. During the pandemic, the use of the ZORACES subcommittee, it did lower. And that's something that we would like to get back to. But quite frankly, right now, we look at the priorities and it's hard to find time to be responsive to the public, but then also try to satisfy those internal wants of what would make the workflow work better. So that is something we'd like to focus on and make certain that, once again, all the decision-making bodies in the city, so that goes from the staff at the front counter all the way up to the city council, we are all operating on the same page and there is consistency. And also that the staff is implementing the will of the city council, who gives the direction to the department.